Hello and welcome. Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan was a slogan for India coined by Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri. After the Pokhran tests in 1998, Prime Minister Vajpayee added Jai Vigyan or Hail Science to this. Now, almost 2 decades later, in an unprecedented protest for India, earlier this year, thousands of scientists took to the streets in 37 cities across the country, decrying the drying up of funds and scientific temper in India today. Is this a reason for concern? On one hand, scientists from India have played a commendable role in the discovery of gravitational waves and of Higgs boson. Our Mangalyaan mission succeeded on the first try. Yet, India lags badly in technological research and development. Prime Minister Modi has vowed that by 2022, India will be a major global scientific power. But is that rhetoric being backed up by action on the ground? Or, as the protesting scientists believe, is science in India facing the danger of being eclipsed by a rising wave of unscientific beliefs? We have in studio D. Raghunandan. He's a member of the Delhi Science Forum. He's one of the organizers of the March for Science. We'll have Anand Sharma joining us, recently appointed chairperson of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Science and Technology, Environment and Forests, a post that the government and the opposition have locked horns over. From the BJP, Mr. Om Pathak; from the Congress, Pawan Khera; Professor Shiv Vishwanathan, a sociologist; Rajiv Menon, actor, scriptwriter and an author of books on mythology; and Ravi Gupta, former Director of Public Interface of the DRDO, the Defence Research Development Organization. Mr. Raghunandan, I want to start with you. We've made a mark on the global map when it comes to our Mars Mangalyaan mission, right? The stereotype of an Indian abroad is somebody who excels at IT and math. So why do we need a March for Science today?
Well, despite the few shining examples we have of good science being done in this country, these are exceptions rather than the rule. The rule in India is that by and large, the university system has dried up as far as scientific research is concerned, and research institutions are starved of funds. There is very little basic research being done, and the fear is that far from India leaping to the forefront of science in the world, India is in serious danger of falling behind and being in a position 5 to 10 years down the road of being starved within this country of scientific knowledge.
But budgetary issues have always been a problem. Is there anything specific about the times we are living in today?
A culture of research that needs to be cultivated here is not taking place. From school onwards, we are not inculcating a habit of critical thinking, and the current atmosphere that is there in the country works even more against critical thinking.
What do you mean?
So you're being asked to believe received wisdom, knowledge. Things like this happened 5,000 years ago. You have no cause or reason to examine whether it happened or not. You are asked to believe that it happened and proceed on that basis.
Are you saying under this government?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, under this government, you're saying there's no space for questioning, there's no space for critical thinking. We had the first Indian Science Congress. For the first time at this conference, we saw surgery, architecture, engineering, applications, all of them that were connected to the Vedic period. What would you say in response? Science in India today now faces a fear of being overwhelmed by unscientific thought and knowledge.
I don't agree with you, Professor, on one count, that it has become so bad under this government. Not at all. But it's been happening ever since. The initial strategies that we should have put in place was to encourage children. Today we have education without skills. The spirit of inquiry is killed right from the very beginning. The fear of failure weighs so heavy on the child's mind that the children simply do not experiment.
So that is
that has not been happening in the last 3 years.
The Indian Science Congress for the first time looked at papers that said that Indians were flying planes from one planet to another 7,000 years ago.
Yeah.
That we had everything is connected to the Vedas.
So why would you want to reject that out of hand? Why would you not explore the genuineness of it all?
At what cost? Because sir here is saying there aren't enough funds.
See, it's a question of earmarking funds. I remember in 1980 in the US Congress, a similar thing was thrown up. And after 3 years of committee's deliberations, they came out with a very beautiful report titled A Nation at Risk. Now, what they said was that today we live in a knowledge society, and if you are not reconstructing and constructing new knowledge, then you are bound to lose that edge that you have.
So the new knowledge would be India's ancient past is all connected to all the advances in science and technology.
I'm saying if they said that there were Vimanas and there were whatever, it's a point of inquiry. I'm not saying whether it's right or it's wrong.
Pavan Khera,
I'm saying why would we not look
where is the
into
problem of point of inquiry? There is, of course, point of inquiry. The BJP is encouraging inquiry. They're encouraging you to question.
As long as you don't question the government, you can question everything. But the problem is, you said that there's paucity of funds. You don't mind spending crores and crores to find out whether one king 5,000 years ago took a flight to Mars. The Prime Minister of the country legitimizes all these claims by talking about cosmetic surgery on Ganesha.
No, but is this a political discussion?
May I be allowed
or is this an
to?
academic
May I be
discussion?
allowed to complete?
I just have a point
Mr.
of order.
Partha?
Let him finish.
just
Sir,
have a
I'll come
point of
back
order.
to you. I'll let
If,
you
Just a
respond
point
to
of
him.
order. I just want to understand.
No, there is no. It's
Is
not a
this
parliament. You
political
can't have a point
discussion?
of order here.
Or
Let
is
me
this
finish.
an academic discussion?
I'll come back to you.
We have enough to be proud of. Varaha Mihra, his works in astronomy, we should be proud of that. Nyaya Vaisheshika, we should be proud of that. We have Charak, we should be proud of that. Why do we need new myths when we have actual truths? You know, myth making is an industry which helps the Nagpur school of thought. I would call it the Nagpur nursery of thought. I don't even want to call it a school of thought. The RSS. Now, myth is a fuel to that ideology. They don't want questions. They don't want scientific inquiry.
You are now allowed to respond. He's saying what you asked. It is political.
Learning of sciences and maths is without any color. It's totally a political, and that is the only way India can empower itself and its people. So therefore, I like to caution, there is no politics in this. Nagpur School of Thought or Nagpur Nursery, utterly reprehensible. It has nothing to do with academics. People take a very myopic view of things, and they like to pin all their failures on one thing or the other. I don't want to go back as to what did Congress do in 70 years, how was the nation destroyed systematically. I'm not talking about that. India needs to excel academically. Our universities have to be built up.
Have they been built up?
They
That's
have
the
to be
point.
built
You're
up.
saying they have. So where are the IITs that
So
were
the
promised?
color of the ruling
We also
party.
need tanks
I can
in
tell you
JNU, by
that
the
the
way.
aims that were
Has
promised
nothing to
have
do
come
with
up.
that.
The
That's the closest they've
IITs
come
really
to
came up
science.
under the previous government. I spoke just a short while ago with Mr. Anand Sharma. I started by asking him, Mr. Sharma, you know, at the start of this year, the Prime Minister emphasized the importance of scientific research at the Indian Science Congress. He said, if we want science to deliver, we must not constrain it. And he added that by 2022, India will be among the top 3 countries in science and technology. In your opinion, are these words being accompanied by action on the ground?
You see, there is a bona fide nationwide concern that the government is not investing in nurturing and promoting a scientific temperament, nor there is any enhanced investment in research and development, which is important. If we have to look at India becoming a leader in the field of technology and science, earlier in this century, the previous government had taken a decision, to multiply the National Institutes of Science from 1 to 5. So that was done, and that should have been further strengthened and consolidated. Along with that, the national commitment, which was 1% of the GDP to the R&D, was doubled to 2%. Now suddenly we have been hearing talks and also theses and theories which actually are in direct conflict with science and also with the technological advancement which the world is witnessing today. Our concern should be that if we fail to create adequate human resources who can connect with this new wave of technologies, which will be disruptive to begin with, we will lose out.
But Mr. Sharma, the Prime Minister talks about how science and technology can be the solution for most of India's problems, how we need to straddle and harness technology for our advantage. Is there a contradiction between what the Prime Minister says and what we're seeing on the ground in terms of policy?
Well, Prime Minister's colleagues and the leaders of the BJP and the RSS, they are coming out with mythological stories and theories that whatever the world is achieving now, India had already achieved thousands of years ago. Whether it was stem cell research, whether it was the cloning, whether it was the aeroplanes, where the fact is that we are still struggling to develop or build a passenger aircraft of our own, though we are building fighter aircraft and the helicopters in India today after decades and decades of research and effort, but we are lagging behind in many areas. But in the field of science, yes, we have potential, we have the best minds, and they should be left to do their work. If the Prime Minister is to say that from Mahabharata, that how the 100 Kauravas were born, that too before an audience of doctors and scientists, that it was because the stem cells were kept in a pot full of pure ghee or clarified butter, and those were cut into 100 pieces, and that's how they were born. Now, that actually raises serious concerns about whether we are moving in the right direction. You can't have a blind endorsement of such theories and stories and at the same time expect that we are genuinely investing in R&D and in developing new technologies. Now, already we have serious challenges when it comes to skilling of our people, training new minds, and creating adequate opportunities and jobs for our young people. For a country with a median age of 24, with almost 2/3 of our population being young, we cannot afford this nonsense which we have been hearing. These people should be sent to, work in their own world, which is not connected with the global scientific or ground realities of the 21st century.
All right, Mr. Sharma, you say this government is undoing what was done by the previous government. But sir, we saw a similar situation in 2010 when Indian scientists reported on the superbug in the Lancet Infectious Diseases Journal. The government then, your government, we had the health minister, Mr. Ghulam Nabi Azad, he rejected this study. He said it would hurt medical tourism in India. So is this government really any different from your government?
No, it's not. I am not aware. You see, we never promoted obscurantist thoughts. We never endorsed mythology. We believed in scientific temperament and nurturing the same. One particular report does not compare the two governments. There would have been reasons, because I am not privy to what you have just said. The then health minister would have had justified reasons to disagree with that particular report. But here we are talking of multiple things which are being done. We never had a situation where the scientific community, the doctors, the technologists were outraged because of what the government was promoting or doing.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sharma. I know you have to leave. Thanks for joining us right now. So we believed in scientific temperament, says Anand Sharma here. Mr. Gupta, Congress says when they were in power, we didn't have scientists coming out on the streets protesting, worried that science in India is being overwhelmed by this rising unscientific thought.
If you see scientific temperament going down in the country, or we are having a level being a bit low, I agree, yes, it is there. But let me say one thing. One of the reasons we can see here in this debate itself. So far there have been 3 speakers, the 4 speakers and 3 were politicians. And what we see is, rather than going into the real causes, everyone is trying to get his own political mileage. That is one of the reasons. Well, we'll tell you why,
because most of the science and educational institutions come under the government, right?
Come under the government.
And what's
but not
scary
under the politics.
Is also the fact when you had this protest, CSIR I think also warned its employees
these
not
are the
to attend.
These are the
so we have to bring in politics.
As a scientist, I would like to say, how do you build the scientific temperament? It begins when the child is a few years old. That's how the process starts. He goes to the school. What does the teacher say? Whatever I have written in the blackboard, that is the last word. So, I don't think any politician is going to the school and telling them and the teacher that don't.
No, the Congress here is saying the message is coming from the top.
I don't think so.
Because they
I
are
don't
saying the
think so.
Prime Minister, for example, addressing an audience full of doctors, presumably men of science and scientists, invokes Ganesh to talk about how plastic surgery existed in India's past and uses Karna from the Mahabharata as evidence of genetic science.
Okay.
This is what the Congress is saying. The message is coming straight from the top. So you can't say it's not
let
political.
me not use the word Congress or BJP. I mean, again, we will be politicizing it. The Prime Minister is saying, I would say, what is wrong in it? If we have certain, okay, let me put it this way. Forget aside what Prime Minister has said. We all agree that Einstein was a great scientist. Okay. Now, his theory of relativity started with a dream. He was visualizing that I am riding on a wave. I hope everybody agrees Einstein was a purely theoretical scientist. He put down his theories, whatever he thought is right. Then there were people who verified it. When he submitted his thesis was rejected. He was snubbed aside. That is all rubbish. There is no truth in it. But then somebody picked up, verified it experimentally, and today the theory of relativity is well established. So, my point is, if I as a scientist have some idea and it can be verified by experimental, at least we can take up the verification. Why can't some ideas are existing? What is wrong in exploring them?
Mr. Raghunandan, would you like to respond? What is wrong in exploring this?
I'm sorry, I couldn't disagree more. This is not how science is done. That anyone just suddenly one day comes up with some idea and proclaims it, that I believe this to be true. Now all the scientists in the country should go around investigating that. When Einstein or any other scientist propounds a hypothesis, he does it on the back of an existing body of knowledge, standing on which he says the next step is likely to be this. It's not some idea that I suddenly get, why can't we have a magnet with only one pole? I say it and then all the scientists must go around investigating whether you have a magnet with one pole or not. This is not science. Right in the outset, when you asked me to specifically comment on this government and what it meant, I hesitated somewhat because I think a tendency not to build or assiduously promote creative thinking is not something completely new. But I think what has been happening now has been wherever in universities, institutions of higher learning, there have been examples of critical thinking, student bodies, faculty engaging in critical thinking. These are precisely the institutions which are being attacked. And that worries me enormously, that precisely where critical thinking is being done and being promoted comes under attack.